Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous, and welcome to another Twin Peaks Thought of the Day. Today is Monday, July 22nd, 2019. This is actually the first Twin Peaks Thought of the Day that I have done since Peggy Lipton died back in May. So it's been over 2 months since we've done one of these videos, but today, while it may be early, at least here on the Pacific side of the U.S., we have Hal today as a special guest. Welcome, Hal.
Hey, Cameron. I got my Laura Palmer shirt on, man.
Oh, the infamous homecoming shot that
Yes.
that magically showed up in the gold ball.
Right. Yeah. How did they get a copy of that?
Yeah, that's the thing. I wish the gold ball had been like a Cheryl Lee picture when she was like a young kid or something like that, or a baby, not just the homecoming picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you actually got to do something that I've never been able to do, which is you got to actually meet Cheryl Lee and Ray Wise.
Yes.
Last weekend, I believe.
Yeah.
So
here in Columbus, a guy called Mike McGrainer does the director series, and he's doing David Lynch's movies in sequential order once a month. And so when he got to Fire Walk with me, he asked Cheryl Lee and Ray Wise if they would come in and do special signings and Q&A, and their schedules worked out. So they were here all weekend long for 4 showings, and they couldn't have been more gracious to the fans, man. I had a great time.
Well, let's be honest here. They have been kind of touring with this movie for a while. I mean, so it's not something that's completely out of their wheelhouse. They have been going to other Fire Walk with Me screenings, which is interesting. There's been more Fire Walk with Me screenings over the last year than I think there was ever in 1992.
Yeah. Well, they seem to really love each other. I mean, their interaction, and, you know, whether it was the official Q&A part or just outside, because Studio 35 Cinema is also a draft house. So there's a nice bar in the lobby. And so they would hang out there and stuff too. And they're, you know, they seem to really have a genuine affection for each other.
Well, incest does strange things to you, Hal.
No, they talked a little bit about that, where, you know, how it was tough for them to, you know, they agreed with each other that, you know, we're going to distance ourselves from the emotional aspects of this, you know, and then, you know, because he goes like, you know, shortly after that, then I'm on top of her, you know, and it's like, you know, so they had to get to a place in their minds where it's like, we're not going to let this affect us, you know?
Right. But it was only like one shot. It wasn't like, you know, the movie's just chock full of horrible moments. It wasn't like they didn't have that Frank Booth, Dorothy Valens, Blue Velvet exchange or something.
Right. But, you know, that scene where Bob crawls through a window and then Ray's on top of her.
But that's not Ray Wise climbing through the window. So.
Yeah, but he turns in, you know, he turns into Leland, you know. And,
True. No, completely. And Ray Wise has always been super supportive with the fans.
He is the greatest. He's so great.
And what's so great about Ray Wise is he's a fan not only of Twin Peaks, but of a lot of the work that he's done. So like whenever he talks about other collaborators, he always talks so favorably and positively, and not like fakely. Like you really truly believe that he enjoys being an actor and being in this world. And I mean, I remember, I've said this before, but I remember when I met him, I met him a couple times, but one time in particular, he was promoting Jeepers Creepers 2, and which actually is not that a movie, actually. But he, you know, at that time, Twin Peaks was dead, right? It was that famous quote by David Lynch, Twin Peaks is dead.
Dead as a doornail.
Dead as a doornail. And I remember talking to him about Twin Peaks, and he said to me, you know what? He goes, I want to thank you because it's probably been 4 or 5 years since someone's talked to me about Twin Peaks. And I was like, what? Like I understand, like, you know, there's RoboCop and other things that he's done, but how could somebody go 4 years without talking about Twin Peaks? I mean, it's a legendary role. And he also was in the prequel sequel movie, right?
Right.
Anyway, so but he was so like passionate, and he just said, "Oh, I would really love to work with David Lynch again if I ever get the opportunity, and I would just jump on it. I would change my whole schedule to do it." Blah 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 blah. And then when right before they announced season 3, David Lynch, touched Ray Wise on the knee and said, "Ray, the town is still there, and we're gonna find a way to bring you back."
Yeah.
And so everyone got really excited.
He addressed his disappointment many times over the course of the weekend.
Well, I firmly believe, and as much as a fan of season 3 that I am, I think that it was a travesty what they did to him.
I got to ask a question during the Q&A. That was the first question at the first show. Raised my hand, they called on me, and the first thing I said was, "Ray, you were criminally underused in season 3." And he goes, "Criminally underused. I like that. I like that."
Well, he was, and it's not like, well, I couldn't get away from Fresh Off the Boat to do this. I mean, right. It was one line, probably shot at the same time with from 2 different cameras.
He got one page from David Lynch with "Find Laura" written backwards phonetically in David Lynch's handwriting, and that was it. And I said, "Well, Ray, did you express your disappointment?" He goes, "Hey, when the master calls, you do what he wants you to do." But he goes, "I think my disappointment was non-verbally palpable to David on the set." And he goes, "Maybe one day I'll kind of address it with him and stuff." But yeah, he acknowledged he was profoundly disappointed. But he was so happy with Cheryl's performance and the other people's performance, especially Grace Zabriskie, singled out and said, it makes it worthwhile. But yes, he was super disappointed. Well,
let me explain where this disappointment comes from. It's not just the fact that, oh, I'm a big Ray Wise fan and I just wanted to see more of him. Because there was, I'm a big fan of a lot of those actors and we didn't see a lot of them either.
Mm-hmm.
The disappointment is that he was flying the Twin Peaks flag when the creators and the star, Kyle MacLachlan, wanted nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
He was willing to talk about it and praise their work and praise the show when everybody else was like running from the show.
Mm-hmm.
He, David Lynch said, we're going to find a way to bring you back. So obviously that says that there is plans for him.
Yeah, that Between Two Worlds segment on the box set.
Exactly. They did a whole sit down in character and out of character, which is really peculiar that they only left the out of character section in the Criterion Fire Walk With Me disc. They didn't leave the character section in there.
Oh, really? I didn't compare that.
No, you only get half of the Between Two Worlds.
Huh.
Yeah. That Criterion disc, while beautiful and great because it's good to have the missing pieces without the audio problems, it's sorely lacking in terms of the features, because half the features from the Blu-ray set aren't on there. The documentaries about the Fire Walk With Me and stuff, they're not on that disc either.
Do you think they eliminated the in-character part because it doesn't the continuity? There's continuity issues.
No, I think they just said, well, it doesn't pertain to Fire Walk With Me, so we'll just eliminate it. But I don't understand, because Fire Walk With Me does lead into season 3. So anyway, and then
one thing Ray said on the panel about his disappointment with not being in season 3, he said, he goes, because we're in that Between Two Worlds area in the Red Room or whatever, and there I am, he goes, I could have been floating sideways or whatever, when they cut back to it, or he goes, I thought there'd be much more of that stuff, and he was thinking to himself, I could come back as a cousin like Maddie. I could be Leonard Palmer, and give me a goddamn wig, It was hilarious. He was just saying stuff like that.
Well, I believe that they could have given him half of Al Strobel's
exactly. Michael J. Anderson, they make a tree, and he's in a ton of scenes, and you got Ray Wise. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't make any sense.
David Lynch is a master filmmaker. I adore him.
Sure.
But he's not above being called out for BS. And I think in terms of Ray Wise, look, he may be dead, but they could have done, like you said, they could have done more stuff with him in the Red Room.
Yeah.
And look, it's not like a 2-hour Fire Walk with Me scenario. They had 18 plus hours. They could have put him in a variety of places. And in fact, they could have shot more with him and just not used it, but they didn't even shoot more with him. Like, they didn't even try.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you right now that if I ever had the opportunity to have Ray Wise on set with something I was filming, I would utilize him like there was no tomorrow.
He's such a great guy, man. He's such a great guy. I asked him another question. I got to ask him the scene in season 2 when they push him into the cell after they arrest Ben Horn, but then they push Leland in there and it's all is revealed, you know. I asked him, you know, what direction he got from David Lynch as far as, you know, hooting, you know, hoo, you know, that's
but that wasn't Lynch. That was Tim Hunter.
Okay, right. Sorry, Tim Hunter directed that. Yes, but he said on the script, he all it said was they push Leland into the cell and he goes crazy, goes berserk. You know, so all the rest of it, how he displayed that was all his kind of actor's choices or improvisation and stuff. So that was pretty amazing because his acting in that scene was insane.
That is one of my favorite scenes in the whole series. The problem is that when you put it on Blu-ray and he smashes himself into the wall and the wall bounces because it's a set.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that they realized that Blu-ray was coming down the line when they made some of these things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bummer. Because I mean, you know, they always talk about now with all the 4K TVs and stuff that, like, you know, makeup on certain movies, they didn't know 4K was coming. So, you know, so you can start seeing the imperfections or the shortcomings on some movies and TV shows. And
sure.
But he's so fantastic. And what's so great about Leland Palmer is even though he's great at the start, I feel like Ray Wise only grows in that role. Mm-hmm. As the show goes on, I think he gets... Not that he was bad to begin with ever, but he just gets better. Like, the more layers they give him, the more that he gets to do, the more you feel like Ray Wise like grasps it and then like does something with it.
He told the story because I attended 3 out of the 4 Q&A sessions, and he told same stories a couple of times, you know, and one of which was the fact that he didn't want to be the killer, right? When Lynch told him that it's you, Ray, it's always been you, Ray, you know, and all that stuff. And he was just like, I had a young daughter at the time, and it was just almost unfathomable to me that I'm going to have to be the killer that, you know, raped my own daughter. It just it's like, no, anybody but me, please. He's like, what about Ben Horn? Ben Horn could have been the killer, you know, but he goes, David leaned over and told him how it was going to resolve. And he was going to, you know, Cooper's going to read him from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and he's going to see the tunnel. He's going to see Laura, and she's going to forgive him, and he's redeemed through that. And the way he described it was so beautiful that he agreed to do it. But he goes, I was that close to refusing to do that reveal episode. He was just like, no, I do not want to do it. You know?
And yet, I'm sorry to say, when you look back at the story, there's only one conclusion to that story.
Right. That's why Lynch said it was always you, Ray. You can see that, you know, even in the pilot, Grace Zabriskie goes, I wonder if she's with Leland, you know, and
well,
just
not only
little
that,
clues like that.
Or when Truman walks into the Great Northern and he goes, Sheriff Truman.
Yeah.
Like it's yes, I understand he's playing grieving father and there's a sheriff here, but that line reading is Bob.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, they laid the groundwork, you know, the whole way.
Completely. But also,
and writing on the casket too.
Well, there's that. Yeah. But no, honestly, if you just even go by life, right? In the last year, how many young people have been killed, and then you find out it was their parents that did it? Yeah. Like it's just part of, you know, it happens all the time. And like, I mean, in fact, if it wasn't for the kindness of Sheriff Harry S. Truman, Leland and Sarah Palmer would have been prime suspects from the start.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not even treated as suspects, you know. So, you know, I just my favorite one of my I don't know, but one of my favorite things about Twin Peaks, I've said this before, is, you know, you have a man who has murdered at least 3 people we know of: Teresa, Laura, and Maddie. Attempted to kill Ronette Pulaski, and yet there's this beautiful wake for him that the whole town throws for him. Yeah, in the house, I believe. Aren't they in Laura's house?
Right.
For the wake. So like 2 days earlier, Maddie is being killed in this room. Like, this entire room, that entire house should have been sealed off as a crime scene by then.
Yeah.
And yet they're holding this wake talking about, you know, Leland always found the other earring.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Kind of a tone deaf.
Well, it is bizarre. I mean, it's like, it's one thing the town like is celebrating. I think they're celebrating just the ending of this thing. But Brianne says the wake is at Donna's house.
Okay.
It doesn't matter though, because the Palmer house was not sealed up as a crime scene. You know, Sarah's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And because Cooper goes to pick her up at their house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mrs. Palmer would be an honor to drive you, you know, while he's standing on the spot that Maddie like was throwing up blood just 36 hours before. But then we're just having the wake for Leland is just, it's so weird because you're so into the show that you just don't comprehend the really, a whole town's gonna come and celebrate a guy who's been like killing women in their town for at least the last couple of years.
Well, it's not a documentary.
No, but I mean, just the thought of it, just the idea that was brought up in the writer's room, and they were like, "That's a great idea."
Yeah,
you know, I've said this before, but one thing they could have done that would have been great, even though, again, like I love the whole Wyndham Annie stuff, is they could have just kept Ray and Cheryl on the payroll. And actually, I think they kept Ray on the payroll because he's on the credits until the very end of the show.
He mentioned that too. He goes, "I'm on like all 18 episodes." He's like, "What is this? Some sort of bait and switch thing?"
No, but I'm saying even on the original series, after he was gone, they kept him on the credits.
I thought you meant on season 3.
But I guess that was done at a time when they didn't change credits, you know. But usually that means you're still continuously getting paid. But it would have been great if they had just done the back half of season 2 as Fire Walk with Me and just said, "Okay, we've ended this story, but now we're going to go back and see what happened," and then you could have Laura interacting with all the characters of the show, and then the final episode would be her death, and then close out the show. Like that would have been amazing.
Yeah, it's like revealing or catching the one-armed man at the end of The Fugitive, not the one-armed man from Twin Peaks, but in The Fugitive.
But it's funny though,
last episode to do it.
The one-armed man in Twin Peaks is named Philip Gerard, who of course was the name of the guy in The Fugitive.
Right. Tony in the chat says, "Hal, what day did you go to the Studio 35 thing?" So I went Friday night, then the Saturday matinee, and then Sunday. So I missed Saturday night, Tony. So if you were at that one, I wasn't there.
Yeah, it seems like there were a lot of people there.
It was sold out for Friday and Saturday night. The matinee on Sunday had a few tickets available, and then the matinee on Saturday, and then Sunday there was some available, but it was pretty full house at all shows.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was a little weirded out when people start posting their pictures, because I love seeing people's pictures. I adore that kind of stuff, but it always weirds me out when I look in the background of people's pictures and I see the same faces that I see at other events across the globe.
Yeah.
And like I understand if you live regionally to the area or you know, but to travel all over the place and insert yourself in the background of everybody's pictures, it's like I would if I was Cheryl Lee, if I was Ray Wise, if I was any of these people, I would be like, this is bizarre. Why are the same people showing up at all these events? I would almost issue out a statement if I were them saying, listen, if you met me more than twice, got my autograph, please give another person a chance to get a ticket. Because obviously, if they're sold out, there were people who wanted tickets. So I don't know. To me,
well, fan is the root word for fanatic.
That's true. That's true. It just, you know what? If I didn't know of these people, I wouldn't notice. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
because once you see things, you can't unsee things. I start seeing the same people all the time now, and all these, no matter where they are, doesn't matter if it's Australia or Europe or, you know, Washington or LA, the same people are there.
Well, they must have a hell of a lot of disposable income because, you know, a couple of guys I talked to came in from Denmark and Switzerland. They flew 10 hours. You know, they were getting the autographs at $60 a smash, you know, 60 for Ray, 50 for Cheryl. And it was like, wow, you know, and then, you know, they'd been here, they'd been there. So, you know, it's above my pay grade.
I'm shocked that Ray Wise is charging, honestly, because he's still a working actor.
We talked a little bit about that to guys that were putting on the show. You know, it was a bit distasteful, but that's, you know, whatever. You know, you can't blame them, man, because they were lined up down the aisle at $60 a smash for a couple of seconds with Ray. You know, a few moments with Cheryl. But
no, because I mean, Ray wasn't charging when I had his autograph, but that, you know, again, it was a different time.
Mm-hmm.
But usually people charge for autographs when work is few and far between, or they're not working anymore, or you know. But if you are a work, I mean, he's on one of the biggest sitcoms on TV right now, so he's not strapping for cash.
Yeah.
And one of the best things about the you know, getting paid to do your autographs is it's you don't have to report that on your taxes. So
right, even the second day they announced cash only for autographs, and I'm like, oh, yeah, there it is.
There it is. Yeah, because there are people that at some conventions that literally walk out $30,000 richer, and they don't have to claim anything. And then that's why they go to convention after convention after convention, because they can do 3 conventions a year and not have to work the rest of the year.
Can't blame them.
No, you can't. Excuse me, but I love Ray Wise, but I am shocked that he was charging something like that amount, considering that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what the arrangement was. The guy that brings it in, Mike McGrainer, he puts a lot of his personal money on the line to do this series, so maybe he got a percentage of that to offset his costs. I don't really know what the arrangement was. You know, who knows?
No. But they're starting to do that at the Twin Peaks Festival, which is causing a massive stir. From what I understand, again, and I don't know this for a fact, this was just told to me, so who knows, considering the way people talk in the Twin Peaks community. But I was told that Machen Amick was the first one to charge at the Twin Peaks Festival. It used to be that your autographs were included in the price,
right? And
that used to be the case out of a lot of conventions. The idea was your ticket got you the autographs of X, Y, and Z, the attendees.
Well, there was 2 tiers, so it's $30 to attend the screening. All right, $150 for VIP included an autograph and a picture with both Ray and Cheryl. So you could buy that VIP ticket, which was probably the cost of those conventions and stuff. You know,
true. So it used to be the only people who charged at conventions were the people who were not there promoting something. Like if you were in a movie or you were in a TV show, you just got their autograph. But if someone was there, let's say Bill Moseley was there, who's in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and Devil's Rejects, but this is before Devil's Rejects. He wasn't there promoting anything. He just had his own booth, his own table.
Right.
So he charged $20 back in the day. Those were good prices. But you know, there's been so much talk about like, well, the Twin Peaks Festival, people now charge for the autographs and stuff. And while, yes, that's unfortunate, completely unfortunate, it is just a reality of the convention times now. People see that they can make extra money, and they, and so they do. And I mean, you can choose, and no one's forcing you to pay it. So
right. And I think a lot of that is because they sign stuff, or if they don't charge, people will come up with a stack and monopolize that, and then you see them on eBay the next day.
Well, if people were smart, if celebrities were smart, they would not just scribble their name and out you go. They would personalize everything,
right.
So you can't sell it.
Right. And they were doing that. They were personalizing things to people. But
that's good. That's good. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why anybody would sell anything of Sheryl Lee and Ray Wise's name unless you had like a million of them already. But
right.
But
the interesting thing was, especially Sheryl, Ray was more like, he was making connections, but Sheryl was making a lot of connections with people. And I sort of had empathy for her because I bet that's an emotional drain because of the nature of the character of Laura. She had a couple people in the audience, kind of do that emotional vampire thing on her, where it's just kind of like, I was, when I was a child and, you saved me related. And I saw her watching The Line, and without hearing the conversation, I just saw her make a lot of eye contact, a lot of, despair in her face, listening to their tale, giving them long, big hugs and stuff like that. So I'm just going, man, that the drain she has of people doing that to her just must be, a lot to deal with. So, but she was gracious and took the time and never seemed to be put off by that. And she talked about, like on the panel, she talked about how she did a lot of research into abused children, when she did Fire Walk with Me, and how she still can't get over the fact that the statistics of that kind of stuff happening haven't gone down at all since the movie, so
well, of course not.
Yeah, well, of course not. But I mean,
nobody even saw the movie when it came out.
Well, she's just saying. I guess her point was we're not evolving. we're not.
No, we're not evolving.
We're devolving. We are Devo.
Look at our government. Hello. I mean, it's not.
No
we
doubt.
haven't evolved much.
Exactly.
What's funny about Fire Walk with Me is nobody went to see that movie, and yet it still played for over 2 months in my town.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is bizarre, right? That was back in the day when movies played for a year in your town, and now you're lucky if they're not out within 3 weeks.
Well, this director series that Mike is doing here at the Studio 35, he when he first proposed it, the guy goes, David Lynch can't fill the house. And he's like, well, let's see. Let's do Eraserhead. And if I sell so many tickets in advance, will you green light the next one in the series? So they've been doing it one by one. And each time he gets to go on to the next one, and then to sell out 4 shows here with Fire Walk with Me was pretty cool.
Well, we'll see what happens when Inland Empire hits the screen.
Well, there you go. Well, that'll be the last one anyway. So if it's sparsely attended.
No, if he was smart, he would do season 3
in one 18-hour chunk.
Yeah.
Yes, they're midnight movies, Cameron. It's like started at midnight and go 18 hours.
Wait, they're midnight movies?
Yeah, this one wasn't because of the special nature of having Ray and Sheryl there, but the other ones have all been midnight.
I was going to say, why are they keeping Ray Wise and Sheryl Lee up at 3:30 in the morning?
No, but what was cool about doing the 2 shows on Saturday is because they had the gap in between. And so the program was, you checked in at like a half hour before the start of the show. And then an hour before Fire Walk with Me, they showed a highlight reel of seasons 1 and 2. So it kind of brought you into the story. They showed the main points, and then Fire Walk with Me, and then Q&A for a half hour, and then the autograph lines.
Yeah, but when did they show Missing Pieces?
And then Missing Pieces after the autographs. Oh, okay. Right. So because they had 2 shows on Saturday, after the autographs were done and the Missing Pieces were on, Ray and Sheryl just came out to the draft house and sat at the bar while everybody else was watching Missing Pieces. So because I'd seen it on Friday on the big screen and I'd seen it a million times anyway, I just went out to the bar to get a beer, and Ray and Sheryl were there, and I just sat down next to Ray and talked to him kind of one-on-one for about 45 minutes, man.
That's amazing.
It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful, man. That was the high, and the guys are paying $60 to have a moment with a picture and an autograph. And I'm sitting out there having a beer with Ray, clinking our glasses for free, man. That was beautiful.
So that's something that I will tell you, for anyone who's never been to a convention, especially if it's in a hotel, if you just hang out at the hotel bar at night, or early in the morning, you'll meet everybody you've ever wanted to meet, because that's where they all hang out.
Yeah. Well, I originally I'd gone outside but it's super hot. We're having a heat wave, and they had it wasn't a limo, but it was a large, black vehicle, and it was parked right in front of the theater. And I knew they'd probably come out, and go get some food or something. So I sat out there for a minute thinking I'd meet them that way. And then it was so hot, I went back in and I thought I'll just sit here and have a beer. And there they were. And I just sat down, man. It was so cool.
You didn't, what was Cheryl doing?
Well, Cheryl, I didn't even see her because I kind of saw Ray first and started talking to him. And then once we were done and they got up to go and get some food, then I looked over there and Cheryl was talking to the guys from the Blue Rose magazine and stuff like that. So she was just in a little clatch over that way, And then later the next day, then I kind of had a moment with her out in the lobby too.
Were the guys at Blue Rose trying to pitch her to write an article or something?
I don't know. I don't know.
Cheryl, no, if you write an article for us, we might sell 5 more magazines.
Don't get catty, Cameron.
Well, no, listen. The reason why I even mention that is because I see all the time on Twitter or on other social media them asking for subscribers, let people know. I mean, in a roundabout way, almost like saying that they're in desperate times. Right, that the magazine is not doing well. They need to spice up the numbers a bit. I've reached out to them. I've said, look, if you're interested, I can write an article. I can probably guarantee you at least 500 sales of that issue. They haven't gotten back to me, so apparently they're not hurting as badly as they make themselves sound. But I mean, who knows how much longer that magazine will even be around? So.
Yeah, Scott's a local guy, and he's always been nice to me, and I support the magazine and stuff. But I hear what you're saying.
Well, because all you have to do is look at the numbers that any Twin Peaks video or podcast is doing at this moment, and those are free. So you have to ask yourself, if someone's asked to pay, even if it's $8 or whatever. I don't know how much does an issue cost now?
I don't know. I subscribe to it. I forget what the cost is. I think it's like 4 issues for I don't know what amount. It's a nice magazine. It's nice, slick. It's good quality stuff.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it is a little pricey.
Yeah.
Right. So if people aren't willing, if people aren't watching or listening to stuff that are as free, they're not going to be paying for stuff in record numbers.
Well, this was the bargain I bought at the Studio 35. It was only $5.
Wow.
That was a nice little souvenir. So you get the cinema logo on the back. But
oh, that's fun.
Wasn't that cool for $5?
That's pretty good for $5.
Yeah, man.
I have a magnet of Cheryl Lee, like on a morgue table from her PETA days. It says,
I love that. I got a poster of that, the full poster of that.
Yeah, I got a magnet. I think I got it on eBay.
I'd rather be dead than to be seen in fur or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And I think I got it on eBay when eBay first came out in 97 or something.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, they got Twin Peaks stuff? Cool.
Yeah. That was I think the first thing she did as Laura, or the only thing she did as Laura outside of the.
It's not even Laura, it's just her on a table.
Well, I know, but I mean it smacks of Laura, dead on a naked dead on a morgue table.
It's definitely playing off that image.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah,
you know what else I got to talk to her about? Backbeat.
Oh, that's she probably loved that.
Yeah, she didn't even know it was out on Blu-ray. So I'm like, when I asked her a question, I stood up and said, by the way, as well as a Twin Peaks fan, I'm a huge Beatles fan. And if you haven't seen Backbeat, it's now out on Blu-ray. She goes, I didn't even know that, And then I talked to her about whether she met Astrid Kircher. And she goes, I wouldn't have even done the movie if I didn't have Astrid's, approval or whatever. And she goes, the cool thing for her was she got to sat down in her house and Astrid Kircher showed her all of these unpublished photos of the Beatles back in those days, ones that have never been seen before. And she said it was so cool to meet her.
All right. So that upsets me too.
Why?
Because she lives in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Shout Select put out that Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they're based out of LA.
And she didn't even know.
No, why didn't they contact her for an interview?
Why didn't they give her a comp copy?
Yeah, well, that too. But I'm saying, like, a lot of times, Shout Select, Scream Factory, that type of thing, they'll reach out to all the people affiliated with the film in the Los Angeles area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Cheryl Lee, based off your description just now, would have found some time.
Yeah,
to tell, because they could have done
commentary would have been cool as hell.
Do they not realize how many copies of Backbeat they would have sold if they had a Cheryl Lee commentary?
No doubt,
right? I mean, who knows? But I mean, at least get her for the interview. So that's kind of a bummer.
That is a bummer now that I think about it. Yeah, she didn't even know it was out and no contact to help.
Like, it's one thing if they said, "Hey, are you available?" No, I'm really busy. You know, she could have. You know, if she said to you, "Yeah, you know, I heard it was coming out. I didn't have time to do the interviews or whatever like that," and like that would be a different thing. But she didn't know it was coming out.
Yeah, she didn't know it was out on Blu-ray.
That's a failure on their part. And honestly, I don't care how many sales they do of Backbeat, they would have sold probably 10 times more.
Yeah,
with Cheryl Lee's cooperation, because look, there's a lot of Cheryl Lee fans out there. There's a lot of Backbeat fans out there. And that's been one of the titles that we've been wanting for a while on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But you would get the fans that didn't even know it existed if it came out like, hey, you know what? Cheryl Lee just did this huge interview where she did a commentary for this movie. People would have bought it sight unseen and tried it out based off that, those extras.
Agreed. Yeah, missed opportunity for sure, no doubt.
Completely. So now I'm bummed, and this is what So to hear this news at 7:30 in the morning is upsetting. How
I've got you all pissed off already.
I'm always angry. I'm like the Hulk. That's my secret. I'm always angry.
You know what was interesting is talking to the fans around the bar, how many people were Twin Peaks fanatics, but had not seen the David Lynch's other movies. I'm like, I was talking to this girl, and she had the Red Room clothing on and stuff and badges, and she could talk Twin Peaks and knew everything about it, and we were having a great conversation. I go, so, what are your other David Lynch films that you like? She goes, I haven't seen many of them. I go, like Wild at Heart, No, I hadn't seen Wild at Heart. Blue Velvet? No. I'm like, Straight Story? No. I'm like, what? It just was weird to me,
I don't know how I feel about people like that. Honestly,
it's odd. I was like,
I mean, look, if you love Twin Peaks, you're guaranteed to love Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just they go hand in hand. Blue Velvet, I know Fire Walk With Me is the prequel, but Blue Velvet kind of is the prequel to Twin Peaks.
For sure.
Jeffrey Beaumont is pretty much Cooper before he meets Wyndham Earle.
Yeah, Lumberton is a prototype for Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah, it's Blue Velvet is basically the test run.
Yeah.
For Twin Peaks.
You're dealing with Twin Peaks.
Small town, drug running, underbelly of society. Frank Booth is Leo Johnson. Yeah,
the duality of Kyle's character. He's an innocent, but yet he's a voyeur and fascinated by the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. That is really bizarre. And you know what? It's like I already have enough problems with some people in the Twin Peaks community that I'm not, because I don't even know who you're talking to, but
she's just
no, girl. But if there's one person, there's 100 of them.
Yeah.
And like, I understand you like what you like, but if you are so in love with an artist's work, wouldn't you want to be exposed to as much of that artist's work as possible to see what else you gravitate to?
That's how I am. If I find somebody I like, I immerse, man. It's like I love Frank Zappa. You know, I've got a complete entire album collection. He's got 120 official releases and tons of bootlegs. You know, I have a complete collection. It's like if I like somebody, man, I go deep.
Especially if they're gonna like do the whole like outfit. You know what I mean? If you're gonna get all red roomed out.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I was Cheryl Lee, I would be running for the hills when people like that show up at my table. I'd be like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's like, because I've always been that way. Whenever I was at conventions and stuff, you know, there'd be cosplayers and stuff. And again, I'm not knocking cosplayers, but I guarantee you that unless you have the coolest of the coolest cosplay outfit, they do not take you seriously when you approach them. When you're all dressed up like a wild person.
Right.
So I always went more or less like I am right now. And so, you know, whenever I met people like Rob Zombie or Clive Barker or Wes Craven or John Carpenter, they were always so nice to me because I wasn't like John Carpenter and wearing.
Right. That's why I got to talk to Ray, man, because I was just, hey, Ray, how's it going? I wasn't like, oh, can I now have a free autograph? Can I take my picture with you free now? You know, and it's like, you just sat down and he was having a drink and I was having a beer and cheers, mate, and all that stuff. You know, it's cool.
Exactly. And sometimes I like talking to these people about everything but the work. You know?
Well, what was interesting with Ray, and he said, you know, please, this is off the record, but he said some interesting stuff. I'll tell you after we're done here.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was.
What does it have to do with? What's the subject?
It's season 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you know, it's just kind of his personal feelings about some stuff.
Well, you know, like you said, disappointment, and that disappointment is felt across the fandom community at large. You just won't see that ever written, like officially. Like the Blue Rose magazine would never write an article saying, you know, you know, Ray Wise's omission is the biggest travesty of Twin Peaks. They'll never publish an article like that.
Well, to you know, they do disparage. Well, like, okay, Scott Ryan has this new book, The Women of Lynch. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
It's 13 essays by women about Lynch,
right?
Addressing, you know, I mean, he gets accused of misogyny and all that stuff. So let's let women speak and say what they think. And there's some essays in there that are pretty disparaging about Lynch. So it's not like they're
really?
Yeah.
So
it's not like he's a total apologist to Lynch, you know.
Okay, because I thought that book, again, I didn't see that book, but it seemed like what I was hearing about it, or at least the way it was being publicized, that it was basically 13 women making the case that Lynch is like perfect.
There is some of that. I mean, probably most of it is that. I haven't read the whole book yet, but the first one I read was the interview with Machen Amick, and so I just kind of, because that was an interview, I wanted to read that first. And then the next essay I read at random was very disparaging. It was from a black female's point of view, and how, you know, Jade is naked in season 3, and how the black characters affected her, and then women in general. And it was pretty. Very disparaging.
Well, remember, While the Heart begins with Nicolas Cage beating the head of an African-American man against a stone floor.
Yes.
You know. Now, yes, Ray Lemon did pull a knife on them. I just remember my grandmother. Okay, this is back in the day. My grandparents had 2 VCRs that could break codes. So if a movie had a code VHS tape and I wanted a copy of it, because VHS tapes were like over $100 back in the day,
right,
I would take the movie over to their house and make a copy of it. So my grandmother is sitting there watching Wild at Heart while I'm making a copy of it. And she said to me, she says, does this character, meaning Lula, does she do anything else but cry in this movie? I mean, and I didn't even think about that. And, you know, it's sometimes when you look at things from a certain point of view, right? It does make you go, oh, that's an interesting take on it. Didn't even think about that. I mean, like, you know, Roger Ebert had a problem with Lynch with Blue Velvet. He had a problem with Wild at Heart. He accused Lynch of misogyny left, right, and center. Even Isabella Rossellini back in 1990. I mean, she's changed her tune since then, but even back in 1990, Isabella Rossellini came out and accused Lynch of misogyny, saying that she was not told that there were going to be when she came out of the house naked in blue velvet, or around the, on the porch, that she was not told that the entire neighborhood was going to be sitting there watching them film the scene. Obviously she's changed her tune by now, but I remember Ebert publishing like a essay or interview with her where she blasted Lynch. But again, if you go by Isabella's words today, I think she felt more hurt that she was getting dumped at the time too. So, you get kind of
right. You have to temper that with what was going on in her personal life.
Right. No, because she's talked about how he just cut her out of his life and went off with Mary Sweeney.
Yeah. The woman that I was talking to at the bar with the cosplay, one that hadn't seen the other films, we were talking a little bit about that. I asked her what her views on that were, and she goes, well, it's a dichotomy, because she goes, and she was younger, so she's like, I think he's from an older generation, and I think there's a bit of, he may be a bit of a womanizer, and she had problems with, the focusing on Christabel's ass in season 3 and kissing Shelley in the diner and all that stuff in the second season, and but she goes, but he writes super complex female characters, so she goes, it's hard to kind of reconcile the two things in my mind, but so she was kind of on the fence about it.
It's strange because he really wants the artist's life, right? And he always says that marriage and children did not equate into that, and yet the irony of ironies is that he's been married and having kids his entire life.
Right.
I mean, he's been married 4 or 5 times now. He has kids with every single one of them. So it's like he wants the artist life, but then there's this other part of him that wants this other thing, but every time he gets it, he rejects it. It's like, because I was reading this thing about
I wonder if he rejects it or whether they ultimately reject him, because he spends so much time in his own head or in his studio and doesn't really have time for anything else but his art life.
Well, no, I remember reading this thing. I think it's in the book. What's that recent book about his autobiography?
The Room to Dream.
Room to Dream. But I read it in an article where it said that when he found out, again, I don't know if this is true or not. This is just what I'm reading online from excerpts from this book. It said that when he found out that his newest wife, Emily, was pregnant, he told, or before he got married, or something about that, either she was pregnant or they just about to get married, he told her, no matter what happens, the work will always come first.
Yeah.
And that's a very blunt thing to say to somebody. And it's one thing if I don't know. I mean, that'd be one thing if like your Match.com profile said that, but to maybe wait until the woman's pregnant to tell her that.
You might want to approach that subject before you get her pregnant.
I don't know. I mean, because that was one of the things that I talked to Jennifer about on my interview with her. Was I really wanted to know what it was like to be the child that was moved on from, how do you, and then she followed in his footsteps by being a creative visionary herself. But
it's like Julian Lennon with John Lennon, he and then he ends up embracing Sean, or like we talked about Zappa earlier, his kids, he was always down in the basement recording. The only reason that the Valley Girl hit song happened is because Moon put a letter under his door and said, "Daddy, can I see you? Can I play with you? Can I play with you in the studio and stuff?" And he goes, "Yeah, come on." And they made a record. And otherwise, she's like, "I never saw my father,"
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I just think it's because like there's so much I admire about David Lynch, but I think that the he never wants to talk about his work. Right. He wants the work to speak for himself. And yet he has been kind of coming out and speaking a lot about himself and his own life. And seems like he's incredibly honest about who he is. But sometimes I read that and I go, well, maybe I shouldn't know everything about my heroes because sometimes I go, that seems like a little mean sometimes, the fact that like, the way Isabella was just dumped, the way Mary Sweeney was just dropped, the way, I mean, and she was with Mary Sweeney for like 12 years or something or longer.
Let's face it. He's an odd duck. There's no doubt about it, man.
Yeah. And yet, but what's so strange is that even though he has had these checkered pasts with these people, married or otherwise, they all come to bat for him. Like they all come out and they go, David's a genius. He's wonderful. He's this and that. Even though he just like dumps them and moves on to somebody else. Like 20 years later, Isabella Rossellini is at the Festival of Disruption, praising David Lynch. It's just like, wow. If everybody had exes that praised them after the horrible things that happened, maybe the world would be a better place. But it is surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But you're right. Yeah, as much as he disappoints people, they seem to praise him. I guess his work transcends their personal gripes or whatever, except for Michael J. Anderson.
Well, yeah. Well, that's a different story. That's a different story. When you accuse somebody of incest and murder on social media, you may be written out of the show and turned into a tree. But this goes back to the Ray Wise conversation we were having, which is even though he has profound disappointment about not being a part of season 3, that he still sings the praises of David Lynch.
Right. When the master calls, I will answer.
Exactly. And that's really funny. It's like, is there another filmmaker out there that can potentially hurt feelings or burn bridges that doesn't have a slew of horrible stories being said about them by these other people? I can't imagine another filmmaker being so loved and praised.
Maybe it's just a consistency where they go, well, even though I felt that way, he's consistent. It wasn't personal. He's consistent in his idiosyncrasies.
Exactly. Although it's funny when he in the 90s, he talked about he didn't allow cooking in his house.
Right.
And then he drops a cooking video on the Inland Empire disc.
Yeah.
So some things have changed.
But he rinses the utensils right away because otherwise it's a nightmare. That quinoa sticks to the pot.
Hey, well, you know what? I understand. It's there are two different types of people on this planet.
No, I totally relate, man.
There are the people like me. Look, when I cook, I clean as I cook. So when I sit down to eat, everything's taken care of.
Me too, Cameron.
Okay? My wife is the opposite. She blows up the whole kitchen, and then you got to clean it all after. So,
when all you want to do is take a nap at that point, it's like it spoils the meal.
Exactly. And then to run with that, there are again two different people on this planet. There's the people where mom tells you the stove is hot, and you go okay, and then there's some people who have to touch the stove.
Right.
Right. The question is, which one are you? Do you have to touch the stove to know it's hot, or can you just go okay and believe the person who knows?
Yes.
Right. And
I can accept their warning.
Yeah.
I don't need to try for myself.
Yeah. Well, we have a bunch of people in the chat, but no real comments or questions. I mean, we have comments, but they're just kind of saying hello to everybody. We have Thomas is here, SK's here. I feel like the romper room mirror thing here. I see Michael, I see Kirsten, I see Tony, Brianna, and Joey. Davern's here. He says, any news of Mandy? Greetings to you and Hal, of course. Mandy's still around.
Gaze for Mandy.
Okay. No, she's still around. She's just super busy. She's going to concerts and having fun with her friends over the summer. So awesome. I just talked to her last night. So
I'll tell you another Cheryl Lee story while we're waiting for some comments in the chat. I asked her, I said, the meanwhile hand gesture, did I already tell you this story?
No.
Oh, so I said, the meanwhile hand gesture, was that a specific direction from David or do you assign any personal meaning to it? She goes, I don't remember the exact details, but I'm sure it was a direction from David. And while, of course, he didn't explain anything about it, I, as an actor, have to have my own backstory of what it means. So I know what it means, but that's a secret. So that's all I got out of her about that.
Yawn.
Right.
You know what? Like, I understand it's this whole, like, you know, we're going to let everyone have their own interpretation.
Yeah.
You know what? I would love it if she just came out and just said, listen, this is how I made it work for me as an actor, but you can still interpret it however you want.
Yeah. She did the same thing because people were asking about Carrie Page, obviously. There was a couple of questions like that. And the only thing she said that was halfway interesting was the guy goes, okay, when you turn into Carrie Page, and she goes, wait a minute, turn into Carrie Page? Like, you know, and then of course she got vague again and said it's open to your interpretation or whatever. But that was the only thing that was slightly interesting.
Well, you know, if you watch the behind the scenes of the Red Room, especially if you turn on the subtitles, when they're going to shoot that scene in episode 2 where Laura's talking to Cooper in the Red Room and she does the and she flies off. If you put on the subtitles, you can hear the assistant director say, okay, we're ready for Carrie Page's shot.
See, and somebody asked her that specifically. They said the assistant director refers to you as Carrie in the behind the scenes, and she goes, well, I haven't watched that. I'd have to see what context that was. You have to remember when you see those, they're small tidbits of things that happen. So she goes, I don't remember that. I don't know why someone would call me Carrie. And she goes, was it David? And they said, no, it's just like the assistant director. And she was just all confused. Like, no, I don't recall that. And I don't know why anybody would do that. And it's funny because Ray kept referring to the fact that he did a show back in '82 that caused him to have a lot of hearing loss in his right ear. So he was having sort of difficulty hearing. And he kept going, why would anyone call you Harry? And she's got, no, Carrie. He's like, no one would call you Harry. It's like, Carrie, Ray.
Oh, boy. Kirsten in the chat says, does Showtime still have the return cast on contract? I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to say no, considering that they were put under contract for 5 years with the locations for 5 years. This year is the 5th year, as far as I'm aware of. It might be 2020, but I don't think so, because they started making casting and location contracts, I believe, in 2014, but I could be wrong. It might extend to 2020, but I don't think so, but it could.
Yeah, Ray seemed to be completely like, no, it's nothing else is ever going to happen. But he said he wishes for like a 2-hour movie or something with just the core cast, Kyle, him, Grace, Cheryl. So he would love something like that, he said.
Well, you never know.
Yeah. Interesting, because he was in Columbus. He was talking about his Columbus connections, because I guess he was from Akron, Ohio, the rubber capital of the world at one point. And he said it was interesting because there used to be a theater, the Kenley Players was a theater kind of troupe here in Columbus, and they played Vets Memorial, which has now been torn down or rebuilt. But it held about 3,000 people. But when I was a kid, my mom would always take me to the Kenley Players, and he goes, that's where I first got my chops in acting. He goes, I was real young. It was like 1967, and he played in, like, On a Clear Day You Can See Forever with Shirley Jones. And at one point, he was helping her backstage. She had a quick costume change, and he was helping her make that change. And he goes, as a young actor, that was like still one of the highlights of my, I was helping Shirley Jones change her wardrobe, And he said years later, he was at some event and her publicist got ill. And he said, he saw Ray and he goes, could you take care of Shirley? I got to go home, And so he said, I was with her that night and we went out to dinner and I reminded her of that time. And we had a great evening, and I still had that kind of young boy recollection of that time. And then I had to drop her off at her house, and her husband was there, and then it was over, but he was having really cool flashbacks of his time in Columbus as a young actor. So that was neat.
Yeah, yeah. He's always. I've met him a couple times. He's always been the nicest person.
Super nice.
Yeah.
He
So.
he even at the end of the fourth showing, and after all that time, signing autographs and meeting everybody, he was kind of by himself, and I was sitting there. I go, "You sick of this yet, Ray?" And he goes, "Man, I could do this another 2 hours." And one time when he was on the Q&A panel, somebody asked him, why after all this time do you still kind of super serve the fans like this and come in? He goes, "The adulation, man." I don't get this from my kids at home. They don't give a damn,
Well, and it's also, you're making fans for life.
Totally.
So that when you do go on something like Fresh Off the Boat, your fans follow you.
Yeah.
I remember asking Bruce Campbell that, actually, because, a lot of times at conventions, you're only contractually supposed to sign, let's say, the first 6 to 7 rows of people.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, why do you stay for like 4 or 5 hours and sign all like 55 rows?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, because somebody in the 54th row is going to buy Alien Apocalypse on DVD at Walmart. And I want him to, to go, when he looks at it, goes, should I get it? Oh, Bruce Campbell was really nice to me. I'll get it.
Yeah.
If it's like Bruce Campbell was a jerk to me, I'm not going to pick it up. I mean, there are people I've met in Hollywood, I will never watch or purchase any of their movies again because of how they talked or treated me.
Mm-hmm. I had that experience as a disc jockey, getting backstage. There was rock stars that were super cool and other ones that were complete jerks, and I've always remembered whenever I hear their song on the radio, I go, that guy's an ass.
Yeah. And that, and I guess they think that they're cool to be like that and act like that, but in reality, they're making their careers smaller than they could be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're nice to everybody, if you're, especially, I mean, as long as people are nice to you, you know what I mean? Someone's there like screaming at you, it's a different story. But, I mean, that's the thing. If you show your appreciation towards the fans as much as they show you, believe me, they'll follow you in your successes and your failures.
And you can tell when it's just like, oh yeah, hey, hi, hey, thanks for coming out. I mean, Ray Wise really connects, and Cheryl did too. I just didn't spend that much time with her, but I did with Ray, and he's a genuine guy, man.
He is who he is.
He is.
Yeah, like you said, you saw him with fans, away from fans, at a bar, and he's still Ray Wise all the way through. And
super nice and funny as hell, and just gracious. And I was a big fan, and it's like I'm a huge fan now.
Now you're a bigger fan.
Totally.
Right. Exactly. So you'll go buy the season 1 of Reaper.
Maybe not. I have to buy the Scooby-Doo collection first.
Oh Lord.
I see you haven't started your packing up.
No, I've started. There's three diaper boxes back here.
Oh, gotcha. You're gonna have to have another one just for your Scooby-Doo collection.
Oh no, I don't even have that big of a collection.
I'm just joking, man. It's a running gag between you and I.
Yeah, but this is literally a nightmare for me of having.
I know. I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
It's one thing if you're going to pack up to move, but to pack up just to fix the carpet and then bring it back all back in. It's just like,
closest I came to that was I packed up and had moved 5 minutes down the street, to a new place. But it's like, it's a nightmare.
Well, before we wrap this up, I'm sure some people are going to be inquiring why you haven't been on this show in a while. So if you want to give people just a little bit of background as to what happened to you, because some people are generally concerned about your well-being.
Thank you. I had a grievous head wound. What happened was my main source of exercise is rollerblade. I've been doing it for like 25 years, and I go to a park nearby here, and so there's point on the lap, and I'm super familiar with the trail, but it goes into sort of a blind left curve and then down a hill into a tunnel. All right. So the city of Columbus, the guys that were mowing the lawn, decided to take probably an unscheduled break and tucked themselves away at the bottom of that blind downhill curve, blocking the entrance to the tunnel with these two giant mowers at an angle where I couldn't get between the two. So with a split second, and there are no cones, no, the trail is temporarily closed, nothing, no warning sign. I'd just done one lap prior to that, so it wasn't like I expected anything. And I went down there and had a split second to decide whether to smash into heavy machinery or to step off the trail. When I stepped off the trail, my forward momentum smashed me into the concrete wall next to the tunnel. And I had 13 stitches up here, 2 skull fractures. But everything is healing nicely. And thank you for asking. And thank you for your kind concern.
Well, you got rewarded because you got to hang out with Ray Wise and Shirley. So
this weekend, cleansed a lot of, downer things that have been happening to me recently. So yeah, it was great. And good to be back and see you, Cameron, man. It's been a while,
I know. I've really missed a lot of the old standby regulars that used to be frequent.
Well, and this is going away, this option to do the Hangouts, right? As far as we know now.
It says right here, Hangouts on Air is leaving August 1st. So
yeah, that's why I wanted to do at least one more with you if that goes away,
It might go away, but and again, right now there's not another option that I'm aware of. But I can't imagine that we couldn't still record something on Skype and then just upload it. It may not be interacting with the fans, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm surprised that they're taking away this type of function, if not just improving it. But it is what it is. We'll figure it out. But there is going to be the official Obnoxious and Anonymous.com. So
I saw your placeholder page, so I've already bookmarked it. Added it.
Yes, but it'd be great if you did a Hal's recommended record of the week or something.
Oh yeah.
just write 2 or 3 sentences and said, pick this one up. It's fantastic.
I'm so unhip when it comes to music. It's like I like what I like, and I don't know what the hell's out there now. I'm an old guy.
Well, Aubrey in the chat says, "Glad you're okay, dude."
Thank you. And if you want to see pictures of this weekend, I got a few of them, and there's plenty of them around. But feel free to friend me on Facebook, Hal Brandt, HalBrandt, and also, Ray did Mersey Dotes a couple of times on the Q&A, and I think there's a video on YouTube of him singing Mersey Dotes to the crowd. So search that out as well. That's a treat.
Yeah, I'll use one of your pics for the main photo of this.
Oh, cool.
I don't know. Did you see the picture of Mr. C and the llama?
I did. That was hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. For those of you who.
I really like the one where you called Splendor in the Grass.
Oh yeah, look at this one. There's Mr. C in the llama with Cooper in the llama.
That's great.
So yeah, we went to this fair and they actually had a kangaroo in the petting part of the zoo, but they had it kind of caged out. But I was like, I've never seen a kangaroo at a fair, so that was random and weird. But no, he likes all these animals. He doesn't cry or scream or anything. He wants to get as close as possible to all this stuff. So that's fun.
He seems like a really well-adjusted, sweet little boy. So you must be a great dad.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's so sweet. I wanted to ask you, because we haven't actually been able to talk about this. What did you think? Because I'm pretty sure you saw it. What did you think of the scene I dropped from Queen of Hearts? Oh,
loved it, man. Very cool. Yeah, totally. Beautiful. And
yeah. You're like, it sucked. I hated it.
It sucked. I thumbs downed it, man.
Well, 10 people did. I can only imagine who those 10 people are.
I hope they have good lives.
Yeah.
Did you see the Deadwood movie?
I did.
How'd you like that?
I'm glad it exists.
You didn't like it that much?
No, I thought it was good. I'm just saying I'm glad it exists because for so long, and we know this, for so long, we've had TV shows come and go out of our lives with no closure.
Right.
And I love this idea that TV shows are coming back to give us some closure.
Yeah.
Or at least give us a sense of one more time. right?
Yeah.
You had the Veronica Mars movie, but now it's back with Hulu. Deadwood's back. It's just it's so nice that like that they're thinking of the fans when they weren't thinking about the fans years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that bums me out about Deadwood is HBO really caused themselves some monetary issues with that, because they had the set.
I know.
And they tore it down, and then they had to rebuild it again.
And that was one of the most amazing sets ever, man.
Right. So, and they promised David Milch, I think 2 or 3 Deadwood movies.
Yes.
Before they took down the set, and then they gave him the runaround, and then they took the set down, and then they had to rebuild it, and they gets 1, and now he has Alzheimer's.
Yes.
So we don't know if we're even going to get another thing of that. I don't know. It's just
that might be the last thing he ever does, you know.
Yeah, but at least he gets to go out on his own terms.
Absolutely.
And if you've ever seen that interview he did with Keith Carradine on season 1 of Deadwood, it is one of the most profound interviews. You start to see what a genius he really is. His thought
Agreed. His thought process is amazing, man.
I mean, it's like, wow. It's like there are a lot of directors and stuff where you hear them talking, you go, that's interesting. And then when you're around someone who actually like thinks differently and so profoundly, and you go, wow. Like
David Milch's commentaries are totally worth. I generally don't listen to commentaries, but yeah, his are always fascinating.
And on season 2 Blu-ray and DVD of Deadwood, they show him working on a single scene of Deadwood, writing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he rewrites it, I think 700 times before they even like go to shoot.
Well, the actors said, you know, the difference with making this movie was that's what they missed, because that was his methodology, where he'd be rewriting scenes right up to when they shot it. But he goes, the movie here recently, because of his Alzheimer's, you know, it was kind of locked in, and there wasn't any of that rewriting stuff going on. So they were disappointed that.
Yeah, but aren't you glad they at least made it?
Oh, hell yes. I loved it. Man. Don't get me wrong. And like I said, it may be the last thing he ever does. And he is a genius. So I'm so glad it exists. And it did bring closure to it for me, because I was a huge fan, you know. And I went back and watched all 36 episodes. And then I gave it a week to allow for the passage of time, and then watched the HBO movie. And it's so beautiful. So beautiful.
So, like I said, this is the first Twin Peaks Thought of the Day video we've done in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
The last one I did was when Peggy Lipton passed away. There hasn't been a lot of news, obviously. There hasn't been a lot of anything, so there hasn't been anything to update you guys on. I mean, I would love to do these more often, but there's just not a lot to talk about, and I don't want to just regurgitate the same old talking points over and over and over.
Yeah. And that's another reason, not only my head wound, but there, like you said, there's really nothing to talk about. I saw this thing this weekend, so I reached out to you and said, hey, let's do one. At least I got something to say, you know.
Well, I mean, there's other things we could talk about. We don't always have to just talk about.
We could do a hanging out with Cameron, and you know, I'll do one of those with you and stuff.
Exactly. And people are still waiting for us to do some big Beatles show, so
we got to do that, man.
Yeah, exactly. So but I always enjoy talking Twin Peaks with everybody, and you know, it's always great to have the live chat. I'm glad we had the live chat while we have it. I don't know what's going to happen in the near future, but we have it right now, and that's great. So I mean, I just want to thank all the people out there who watch this show, who support this channel. Thank you so much for all your kind words, all your support. It means a lot. The last year has been rough for a lot of reasons, as it has been for Hal for a variety of different reasons. But I'm so glad that you guys are still here, because it means the world to me. You know, after so many horrible things being thrown my way over the last year, it's great to still feel like, you know, that we're still moving forward, you know.
Well, and your casting's coming along good from your recent posts, right?
It's coming along. I mean, I'm almost there, but it's those crucial last steps that you know, because the roles I have left are not just like, you know, miscellaneous person number 5. It's like they're actual like roles and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that not only do you have someone who can handle the part, but can handle the time commitment and that type of thing. Because, you know, otherwise you have an actress who works one day and then quits after having the role for 4 months.
Well, that clip you dropped, you know, knocked everybody's shoes off. And so we're looking forward to more, you know.
Well, thank you. And also I hope that one day that actress gets to see that clip.
Yeah.
And realizes just what she abandoned.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like what I was able to make of that scene with her performance, it's honestly the best thing that she could have on her reel.
Yeah.
And but apparently pilot season was a call-in, and she wanted to do stuff with her hair, and she thought, it's a little fan film, and I don't want to be I have better things to do. So all right, fine.
Well, when you get it done, man, make sure you tell Ray, because I told him about Thor's fan film about the Pearl Lakes, and he hadn't seen it, and he was totally interested. He's like, is it good? You know, yeah. So I sent him the link on Twitter, and he's like, I'm gonna check it out. So he's totally open to.
But you didn't tell him about Queen of Hearts? Well,
you know, it's not finished, so there was, you know.
Oh, okay. I see how it is, Hal. That's fine.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. Well, we still have 42 people watching right now. So is there anything you would like to say to everybody before we go?
No, just thanks for tuning in. I miss doing these videos with you, Cameron. I always check the old ones we did when season 3 was airing, and still I'm amazed that the one after episode 8, you know, has like 19,000 views or something like that. It cracks me up, and that was one of the funnest summers ever. So I miss doing these with you, and you're a great guy, and so thanks for having me on again.
I still get comments from people that like write to me, and they say, I sometimes go back and just rewatch episode 8 with you and Hal because it's so epic. And I try to explain it's like, well, that was difficult because it wasn't so much, yes, what we saw we had to talk about, but I wasn't scared that the rest of the show was going to go in this direction. You know, it's like, well, how are we going to address this moving forward? And it ended up being a standalone thing. But I mean, they could have easily just taken the series in that direction for the rest of the 18 episodes. How we didn't know at that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
again, I want to thank Ray and Cheryl for treating the fans in Columbus so well this weekend. And if you're in the Central Ohio area, check out Mike McGrainer's Director's Series because it's continuing at Studio 35, and hope to see it at one of the screenings of the future films. Yeah,
they should get Naomi Watts and Laura Lena Herring for Mulholland Drive.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
Yeah. It's funny. The moment you said that I'm a great guy, this video got another thumbs down.
That was me, man.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow us on Patreon if you'd like. It's always wonderful doing these videos with you, Hal. You're the best.
Mutual.
I appreciate it. All right, everybody. Take it easy. We will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.